Chapter 29. Father Christmas suddenly found his throne pulled from under him, and himself sprawling in a most unregal manner on the flagstone floor. The throne then rose into the air, moved back a few feet, and settled down, and Hugo Rune materialized upon it. He was smoking a green cigar.
"It is I, Rune," said Rune. "None other, so mote it be."
"Get off my throne!"
The king thrashed about on the floor.
"Help me up, kobold! Help me up!"
Arthur Kobold hastened to oblige.
"Get off the king's throne, you blackguard," he said.
Hugo Rune ignored the both of them. He took out his pocket watch, flipped open the golden cover, and perused the hour.
"We have some time left to pass before the overthrow of this evil empire," he declared. "Now, how best might we pass it? I know, don't tell me. You would like me to entertain you with fascinating episodes from my life."
"I wouldn't," said Tuppe. Rune threw him the merest of withering glances. "That'd be nice," said the small fellow, hanging on to his mouth.
"I recall a time in Brunei."
Rune settled back in the king's throne and puffed at his cigar. Arthur struggled to right the king, but wasn't making much of a job out of it.
"The Sultan had taken on my services as financial advisor. He wasn't the Sultan then, of course. He was a rickshaw repairman called Kwa Ling. That's Mandarin for Colin. Now, I say that he took on my services, and this is not strictly true, for he did not know it then, nor has he ever known it."
Cornelius was fascinated, not by the tale, but by the man.
"Allow me to set the scene," said Hugo Rune. "A bar, roofed in bamboo and walled in silks. It overlooks the South China Sea. I am seated therein, looking much as you see me today, distinguished, stately, in repose. The year is 1923.
"Stop!"
cried the king.
"Just you stop, kobold. Get me up."
"I'm doing my best, sire." "Silence."
Rune stretched out his right hand and plucked at something in the air. A table materialized. It was a pedestal table, and this time it was not covered by a silken cloth. On top of the table was displayed a perfect representation of the great hall, and all who sat, stood, or had fallen over and were being helped back up in it.
"Oh dear," said Cornelius Murphy.
"What's that?"
asked the king.
"A present? Has Hugo brought his old friend a present?"
"Hugo has not," said Hugo Rune. "Now kindly do not interrupt me again. I am dining with a close chum of mine, Sigmund Freud. Our chosen fare, vichyssoise, Blue Point oysters, lobster tails with drawn butter, clam chowder and soft-shell crabs, washed down with iced Finlandia vodka and white Almadan. All brought in for me from Honolulu on the flying boat. In those days a gentleman was treated like a gentleman. The masses knew their place."
"Those were the days,"
said the king. "Shut up," said Hugo Rune. "Now, where was I?"
"Dining out with Clement Freud," said Tuppe. "You were having crab sticks and jelly deals. You didn't say who footed the bill."
"The meal was concluded," Rune went on. "We drank brandy and shared a pipe of opium. Ziggy, as was his way, then 3 sheets to the wind and stoned as a 6-day camel, asked me this question. 'Guru,' he asked, 'what's it all about then, eh?' Now, I am not one to sing my own praises, but I pride myself that this is one question I can answer to complete and utter satisfaction."
Cornelius wondered whether he should ask Anna to shoot Hugo Rune, possibly just in the foot or something.
"There are exactly 23 really wonderful things in this world," I told Ziggy, "and always to be in the right place at the right time is one of them." Ziggy sniffed at his ultimate truth. He had a touch of the tropical egg.
"Kobold," said the king, "remove Rune from my sight. He has lost the last of his marbles."
Hugo Rune reached over to the pedestal table and gave it a little shake. The great hall shuddered. Tabards tumbled from the walls. All those standing felt the floor. The king, who was almost half up, collapsed on to Arthur Kobold. Cornelius clung to the king's table. Rune clung to his throne.
Siggy sniffed, said Rune, when some degree of normality had been restored. Allow me to demonstrate, I told him. Pick the most useless individual you see in the bar. Siggy squinted all about the place. His eyesight was never up to much, but finally he pointed to said Kwa Ling, rickshaw repairman and town drunk. Now, said I, viewing this specimen, what say you if I can make this fellow the richest man in the world? I would say, Siggy replied, asking for the lend of 50 guineas that you might repay the loan I made to you last year. Always the wag and the tightwad was our Siggy. The king had now manoeuvred himself to his knees and was wondering where Arthur Corbould had got to. Arthur, for his part, was now lodged firmly between the redly trousered cheeks of the king's bottom. Tuppe considered this quite amusing. Arthur Corbould did not.
"Will you please stop?"
the king implored.
"You have told me this story before, and nonsense it all is. You uttered the words of some magic spell, the rickshaw repairman stumbled into the street, and is immediately struck down by a passing car. The driver, an American philanthropist, mortified by this, pays for his hospital bills and awards him a small sum of money. The rickshaw repairman buys himself a plot of land. The land turns out to be rich in mineral resources. He leases out the rights, buys more land, same thing happens, does it again, and the same thing happens again, and soon he is the richest man in the world. It's rubbish."
"It certainly is, the way you tell it, but true, nonetheless."
"No, it's not, because the Sultan of Brunei is not the richest man in the world. I am, and I have all the best spells, and even I don't have that one."
The king found his feet. Yes, they were on the end of his legs. "I know."
"Ugh,"
went the king, plucking Arthur Corbould from his backside.
"And all this is quite enough. Down to the dungeons, a lot of you. Kobold, lead them out."
Rune's hands strayed once more towards the pedestal table. "If I might ask a question," said Cornelius Murphy. "Yes," said Rune. "Where is Her Majesty the Queen?" Inspector Horvis had been thrusting and parrying for quite some time. "Haven't you?" he cried, taking up the classic fencer's position. Elbows on the desk, cigar in the mouth, and I know it's good gear, but the stuff's red hot and I can't move it on the open market. Prod will be done on me as quick as winking. I'll give you a monkey for it and no questions asked. The big green thingy scratched his head.
"Is that a misprint or what?"
"Haven't you then?" Hovis took up the classic fencer's paws, knees slightly bent, left arm back and crooked at the elbow, left hand dangling, sword stick held firmly in the right, parallel to the ground and level with the tip of the nose. "Have at you!" Slice, twist, cuss, thrust.
"Grab his legs, Terence,"
cried the big green thingy. "Leave me out." Mulligan shook his head. "I'm just a cabbie. I don't get involved in no bother." "What do you do if someone cuts up rough?" the other big green thingy asked him. "Bang on the central locking and drive him straight round to the nearest nick." "Central locking? I'll bear that in mind. It's compulsory on a black cab now. You're not allowed on the road without it." Horvis kicked the other big green thingy in the teeth, scattering many of these about the torture chamber. "I know not of what you speak." Rune flicked ash from the end of his cigar. "The Queen? What of this?"
"If you've done anything to harm my wife,"
roared the king. "His wife?" said Anna. Tuppe nodded. "According to Rune, the Queen is one of them. She's not really a human being." "I never thought she was. She doesn't go to the toilet. Everyone knows that." "I knew it," said Tuppe. "The Queen is quite safe," said Rune. "Her exact whereabouts are known to myself alone."
"You fiend!"
cried the king. Rune gave the pedestal table another little shake. Walls shook and the king fell over again. This time Arthur Corbould ducked well out of the way. "As you must now be well aware," said Hugo Rune, raising his bulk from the king's throne and positioning it behind the pedestal table, "I am in control here. I have but to reach a finger into this microcosm and squash any one of you as I might an ant." "Squash her first," said Arthur, pointing at Anna.
"Why don't I have one of those tables?"
asked the king. "Pay attention." Rune raised a finger. Everyone paid attention. "You," Rune pointed to the king, "I would address your people. Summon them here."
"My people?"
The king was still in the supine position. Your princes and princesses, lords and ladies, jugglers and fools, your minions, underlings, peasants and peons, elder statesmen, younger statesmen, artisans, maids in waiting, concubines, footmen, your people.
They're all here, really,
said the king, who was now sitting up.
Except for a couple of guards and the woman who cleans on Tuesdays.
What? Cried Hugo Rune.
Well,
the king explained,
it's like this. Every generation there are fewer folk in the world. Take yourself. There is only one of you, yet you had 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great...
Shut up! Rune raised the doom-laden finger. I know all that. I discovered it.
Well, there you are then. My missus walked out years ago, and my daughter, who you got pregnant in your vain attempt to be made a prince, went with her. My grandson became a Scotsman and got blown up, and Arthur never married.
Never fancied the cleaning woman, said Arthur.
And the guards aren't really guards at all. They're just conjurations.
And they're right pain in the neck, said Arthur, always going on about overtime and bonus payments.
Rune looked appalled. He was appalled. Cornelius was appalled also. You mean to say that there's just Father Christmas and this one little fairy left?
I don't like that term, said Arthur. I'm a kobold. Who does your cooking then? Anna asked. Who bakes the cakes?
Fortnum and Masons, said the king. Whoever did you think?
Fortnum and Masons, eh? Tuppe climbed up onto the chair next to Cornelius. Yum, yum. Try the Black Forest gatto, said Cornelius.
Get away from my cakes.
The king was finally back on his feet. Interesting situation, said Cornelius to Hugo Rune. When exactly might we expect the police force and the army and the world's press to come bursting in here and arrest Father Christmas in this one little fairy? Rune took out his pocket watch once more and scrutinised its face. Quite shortly now. Doesn't time fly when you're having a good time? Do you know why, by the way? I wrote a rather erudite monograph on the subject. Rune smiled upon Arthur Corbold. How long would it take you to conjure up a few hundred guards, put on a bit of a display of defence, just for appearance's sake? You could do that, couldn't you?
I could, but I won't.
Arthur folded his arms. Hugo Rune dipped into the microcosm on the pedestal table and twanged the head of the miniature kobold. The full-sized version toppled sideways, clutching his skull.
About 5 minutes, he said.
Well, hurry off then.
Now see here, said Cornelius.
Now see here, said the king.
No, said Rune. He that controls the magic table controls all of the now see here's. The king must have his guards. He must be seen to be putting up a struggle. Can't disappoint the viewing public.
The king stroked his whiskers.
These policemen, soldiers and what-not, they will all have guns, I suppose.
Of course.
Rune nodded his big bald head. Lots of guns.
Will they have swords at all?
Not in this day and age, said Rune. Swords indeed.
Ah, said the king. Tell you what, Arthur, why don't you conjure up 500 guards and make a really decent show of it?
Arthur and the king exchanged knowing winks.
Let's make it an even 1,000,
said Arthur Corbold, heading for the door.
Help yourself to cake, everyone, said the king.
It was taking reliable Ron Sturdy rather a long time to get up Star Hill. He kept getting distracted. There were all these old buses with bald tyres and out-of-date tax discs, and no one seemed keen to help him with his inquiries. The Gandhis were rocking on. Prince Charles had joined them on stage and was playing his cello. Polly was glowering at him. Mickey Minns sauntered over to her. He thought she was Anna. "Want to dance?" he asked. Inspector Horvis was making reasonable progress. He was out of the torture chamber now and fighting his way up a flight of stone steps. The big green thingy, whose brother Colin, the great detective, had pranked, was putting up quite a show of force, but it was keeping its back to the wall, just to be on the safe side. Arthur Corbold was back in his office. The filing cabinet was open and Colin was out. Arthur was manipulating a foot pump.
"You're in for a bit of a multiplication," he told the green thingy that was growing bigger by the moment. "Do your job properly, and you'll get double bubble, time and a half, a big watch of folding tin your old skyrocket, and a golden handshake. Do you have to stick the air pipe up my bottom? The big green thingy complained.
Mind if I sit back on my throne?
The king asked Hugo Rune. Be my guest, said Hugo.
So kind.
The king eased himself into it. Great cake, said Tuppe. Are you really truly Father Christmas, by the way?
I am here,
said the king.
Then whatever happened to my train set? I sent a letter up the chimney 3 years running. Don't tell me they all got lost in the Christmas post.
What's your name?
asked the king.
Tuppe,
said Tuppe.
As in Tupperware?
That's me.
I remember your letters,
said the king.
Such neat handwriting.
Thank you, said Tuppe. I did my best.
Caravan,
said the king.
You lived in a caravan.
That's right.
Tuppe was very impressed.
So why didn't you bring me a train set?
Because you're a bloody traveller,
said the king.
and I don't give presents to bloody travellers.
What a shit,
said Tuppe to Cornelius.
I reckon that dyslexic devil worshipper who sold his soul to Santa sold it to the right bloke after all.
Midnight,
boomed the voice of Hugo Rune, and on that cue Inspector Horvis burst through the open door.
Right on time, said Rune. Magnificent.
Horvis slammed the great door shut upon the fingers of the big green thingy. He shot the bolt into place and turned to gaze in no small wonder at all which lay before him.
Well, bugger my boots, said the great detective,
and Rune smiled upon him. Has all gone as we arranged? I trust you have the police force and the army and the world's press with you. You didn't forget to phone the BBC.
I have called nobody.
Horvis brushed a cobweb from his shoulder.
I made the mistake of hailing a black cab. You neglected to warn me about those. Some kind of secret organisation, I understand. Are those the culprits?
Him. Anna, Tuppe, and Cornelius pointed to Father Christmas.
The shit,
said Tuppe.
Him?
The inspector sheathed his blade.
But surely this isn't none other than... Crash, 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 went something going crash, crash, crash against the great door.
The army? Rune made a hopeful face.
A big green thingy, said Horvis. One of the king's conjured guards, I do believe. A right evil crew they are, too. Can't be destroyed by normal means, guns and whatnot. Only respond to the kiss of the sword.
What? Hugo Rune looked quite upset.
Some you win, some you lose,
said the king, smiling hugely.
No, no, no,
went Hugo Rune, and crash, crash, crash went the great door with renewed vigour, almost as if the energies of a single big green thingy had been increased by a factor of 1,000. Reliable Ron Sturdy had finally reached the control box. He swung open the door and stared down at the pile of bodies.
Hello, hello, hello,
he said.
What's all this then?
At 'em, lads, cried Arthur Cobalt from the corridor. Storm the Great Hall, free the king, destroy Hugo Rune and that bloody woman also. Off with their heads.
Double time after midnight,
said Colin. We did a great double time. And crash went the great hall's great door, tearing from its hinges and plunging to the flagstone floor, and in poured a monstrous legion of big green thingies not pleasing to behold. The king clapped and cheered. Anna and Tuppe took shelter beneath the king's table, and Horvis whipped his blade out once again. Hugo Rune raised his hand to smite the microcosm. Cornelius leapt from his chair and dived at Hugo Rune.
Constable, are you all right?
Sergeant Sturdy took the dazed Ken loathsome. Someone hit me, Sarge.
What did you say? I can't hear you above that damn band.
Someone bumped me on the head.
Hold on a minute, lad. I'll switch him off.
Of course, he could have just closed the soundproof door, but he didn't. He stepped over the officer down and approached the computer console.
Which button? He asked himself. Probably this big blood red one,
he decided, and without further thought, that was the one he pressed. Heaving, muscular forms, all vivid green and primed for mayhem with promises of a big cash bonus, rushed across the flagstones. The king slapped his gargantuan thighs and laughed uproariously. Anna and Tuppe cringed beneath the king's table, and Cornelius struggled to restrain Rune.
They will kill us all,
cried Rune. "Let me destroy them." "You'll destroy us as well. Leave the thing alone." Cornelius made a grab for the pedestal table. Hugo Rune stuck his foot out. Cornelius tripped and fell against the table, knocking it over, and then all sorts of exciting things began to happen. The Gandhis suddenly found themselves strumming dead instruments. Their speakers fed back, and a strange ungodly wave of sound swept out from them. It crystallized into a sequence of notes, the likes of which none present knew the names of. Haunting, mysterious, downright weird. The ground beneath the stage began to move. One of the Herculean hairdryers tore from its mounts and bowled down the hillside, scattering travellers before it. The stage shook. Prince Charles took a tumble. Polly took a tumble. Mickey Minns helped her up and offered her considerable comfort. And then the stage began to sink, down into the portal that was opening right beneath it. As thousands looked on in amazement, the stage with its Hollywood letters, its video screen, the most famous rock band in all the world, and the Prince of Wales, vanished into the top of Star Hill. There was a moment of silence. There always is. But then a great cry went up, and the travellers stormed the hilltop. The king's table slid sideways, spilling off its cake. Much of this went into the lap of the king, who followed the sliding table on his own sliding throne. In accordance with its microcosm on the now fallen pedestal, the entire hall was turning on its side. Cornelius tried to right the magic table, but he too was sliding across a floor which was rapidly becoming a wall. Rune rolled by, followed by a good many green thingies, an inspector with a sword stick, and Mr. Arthur Corbould. And in through the great doorway slid something rather wonderful. An entire pink stage, complete with four-piece band and prince, a selection of lighting gantries, a control box containing a white-faced Sergeant Sturdy, an utterly out-of-it Constable Ken, and a sound engineer who didn't have much of a part, a number of Hollywood-style letters, which now spelled out HR is a nerd, probably by accident rather than design, and a 50-foot hairdryer.
"What the heck is going on?"
shouted Chief Inspector Lytton to his troops at the place where the buses turned around.
"They're all running away."
"We're making up the hill," said a helpful officer. "It looks like the stage has collapsed. Should I radio for an ambulance?"
"Radio for reinforcements, men. To your cars. Let's get up there."
"Should I radio for helicopters, sir?" asked the helpful officer. "We can see how well the big numbers on the tops of our cars work then."
"Good idea. Radio for helicopters. Now forward, men. After those travellers."
Shape as sheep. Vainglory clung to his microphone stand.
"We've fallen into hell."
A big green thingy struck him from his feet.
"How dare you smite my chum?"
said Prince Charles, wading into the big green thingy with the business end of his jello. Cornelius fought to keep hold of the pedestal table and get it back up the right way, but tumbling bodies engulfed him in a verdant maelstrom of flailing fists and not a little purple prose. The great hall took another turn for the worse, then came to rest, upside down. Those who still had places left to fall to fell to them. Those who tried to get up found others knocking them down. There was some unpleasantness, but it was nothing before the fears of that yet to come, because now, in through the door, surged the travellers. "Judge!" cried Bollocks at the head of them. "Now there have been battles, and there have been battles. You had the Somme and El Alamein, Goose Green and Desert Storm. But you never had anything like this before. The green legions of King Christmas, rising up from the ceiling, which was now on the floor, offered up a battle cry and launched themselves against the invaders. The invaders, somewhat stunned by the enormity of their adversaries, decided to take flight, but as more and more of their numbers were pressing in through the inverted doorway, they were unable to do so. The big green thingies, for their part, suddenly realised that these were no ordinary invaders. These were the dreaded travellers themselves, feared throughout the world. The big green thingies sounded the retreat, and then came the police car sirens. Those travellers that were in wanted out, those that weren't quite in wanted to see what was in before they went out, and those that really weren't in at all and didn't have much of a hope of getting in turned to confront the police. And so on and so forth, and as if a great mass mind had suddenly arrived at a single decision, every one and everything fell on each and every other one or thing and began to beat the living daylights out of it. In a far corner, Cornelius tried to right the pedestal table,
But the microcosm had gone. The mechanism was smashed and the innards all hung out in a ruined mass. Curiously, they appeared to consist of nothing more than a couple of old tennis balls with nails stuck in them and a clockwork mouse and a little treadmill. Tuppe crawled over to his friend.
"Do you think we should get out of here before we get killed?" he asked.
"The doorway looks a tad crowded. Perhaps we had better hide. Where is Anna?"
"I thought she was with you."
"You did not."
"No, you're right."
Anna was nowhere to be seen, and Cornelius, even with his height to his advantage, could not make her out amongst a seething battle.
"She'll be okay," said Tuppe.
"You wouldn't be just saying that."
"I would, you know."
Doo-da, 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 went the police car sirens. Or is it wee-wah, wee-wah, wee? It's wee-wah, I think. A police helicopter circled over Star Hill.
"Hey, look," said the co-pilot. "You can make out all the big numbers on the tops of the police cars."
"So you can," said the other pilot.
"I wonder what they're for."
"Get moving," said Arthur Corbould. He'd got his gun back and he was prodding Anna with it, prodding her along a stone passage, a secret stone passage. It led away from the great hall. Anna was in front, Arthur was behind her, and good old Father Christmas was bringing up the rear. It wasn't that large a secret passage. They're not usually. Santa was pretty cramped.
"Where are we going, Arthur?"
he asked.
"Making our getaway, sire."
"But get away to where?"
"South America,"
said Arthur.
"Why don't you just give yourselves up?" Anna asked. "You're beaten and you know it. Don't be absurd."
Arthur gave her a good hard poke with the pistol.
"True, the king and I and the cleaning lady may be the last there are in London, but that's just London. Our lot are all over the world, few in numbers but great in power. We'll live to fight another day. Now, as hostage-taking seems to be the order of the night, you are our hostage until we make our safe escape. Then I'll shoot you. It's nothing personal. Well, actually it is.
Cornelius will track you down, no matter where you hide."
"He won't find us. The world is a very large place, much larger than you think it is. Murphy is probably dead by now anyway, and even if he's not, there's no way he's going to find the entrance to the secret passage."
"Hey, look," said Cornelius. "Isn't that the entrance to a secret passage over there?"
"Oh, yes," said Tuppe sarcastically. "And surely that is a piece of Anna's T-shirt lying in the entrance."
"No." The tall boy flexed his nostrils. "But that's the way she went. I can still smell her perfume."
Inspector Horvis was in the thick of the fighting. A lesser man would surely have perished, but not Inspector Horvis. His blade was in play to pleasing effect. The big green thingies Arthur had so hastily conjured by the multiplication of Colin weren't really up to the required standard. The great detective was cutting the proverbial bloody swathe through them. "Have at you!" he cried time and time again. As no more travellers could possibly squeeze through the portal and into the great hall, those that remained outside, about 22,000 of them, rushed back down the hill towards the police, who were advancing up it. Chief Inspector Lytton was leading the way, on foot. "Retreat!" he shouted, and squad cars to each and every side of him did just that. "Lights!" called the Chief Inspector, suddenly all on his awesome. "Lights!" "Kill the pig!" cried the voice of the multitude.
"Get in,"
said Arthur Corbould.
"Get in," asked Anna. "To this."
"It's an ice cream van,"
said the king.
"I don't want to get into an ice cream van. Look, my nice silver car is back. Hugo must have returned it."
"Trust me, sire," said Arthur Corbould. "We need to slip away unnoticed. Your nice silver car will only draw attention to us."
"We could use my special birthday spell. Move faster than time."
"I broke your spell. It won't work again for another year. Please get into the van."
"Perhaps we could take a taxi or something."
"Do you see a taxi, sire?"
"No,"
said the king, although in fact he really should have been able to see a taxi, Terence Arthur Mulligan's taxi, but the king couldn't see it because it wasn't there anymore.
"I don't want to be driven around in a rotten old ice cream van."
The king stamped his foot.
"Stop!"
shouted Cornelius Murphy, emerging from the secret passage with Tuppe puffing hard on his heels.
All aboard, said the king. Mine's a banana sundae.
The portal door of the king's private car park swung open to the outside world, and the ice cream van passed through it.
Quickly, said Cornelius. I'm being as quick as I can. Sorry.
Cornelius scooped up the top and hastened towards Rune's silver car.
We've got to get after them. Another car chase, said Tuppe. Oh, goody, goody. Just what I need.
Cornelius flung open the car door and flung Tuppe into the passenger seat and himself down behind the wheel. The keys just happened to be in the dashboard. Up and away, cried Cornelius Murphy. Wheels went skid, the engine didn't go glug glug, but roar, and the silver car streaked out into the night.
Arthur, are you really sure you know how to drive this thing?
Of course I do. It's very fast for an ice cream van.
In the back, the king lurched from side to side. Anna ducked these lurches as best she could. The king was a real space filler. Arthur raked the ice cream van along a row of parked cars.
I'm getting the measure of this, Your Majesty.
Oh, no.
The king stared out through the back window.
That Murphy is chasing us, and in my favourite car.
The game's up.
Anna dodged the mighty posterior.
Surrender now before Cowboy gets us all killed. Don't be ridiculous.
Arthur dragged the steering wheel to the right, and the van went round the corner on 2 wheels.
He's a nifty driver, said Tuppe, for a fairy.
Watch this. Cornelius put his foot right down. Ooh, went Tuppe.
I'm getting travel sick,
said the king.
Slow down a bit.
Not until we've lost Murphy.
Arthur pranged the pedal.
Don't you chuck up on me,
said Anna.
They're getting away.
Tuppe clung to the dashboard.
Go faster.
Get real, Tuppe, please. Mulligan's ices tore out into the high street.
Open road ahead.
Arthur did a racing change. We'll lose him on the straight.
Oh, I do hope so,
said the king.
This is becoming a proper Rannus horribilis.
Who are you calling horrible? Said Anna.
Just keep calm, sire, said Arthur Corbould. Nothing can stop us now.
Put it back into first gear again,
said Terence Arthur Mulligan to the big green thingy who was thinking of going into the limousine hire business.
Go on, you're doing all right. I really appreciate you giving me a driving lesson so late at night, said the big green thingy. Best time for it, when there's no one around. Back into first. No, that's reverse. Sorry.
No problem. I only lease a cab. If you bugger the gears, it goes into the workshop and I get another one. Try putting your foot on the clutch pedal before you change gear.
Sorry,
said the big green thingy.
Ha ha,
went Arthur Corbould.
The open road, home and free. Rio, here we come.
Faster, said Tuppe. It won't go any faster, said Cornelius.
We're losing them,
went the king.
Ha ha ha.
No, that's still reverse, said Terence Arthur Mulligan.
What's that up ahead?
cried Arthur.
It looks like a taxi reversing across the road,
said the king.
It is a taxi reversing across the road.
Arthur went for the brake.
Oh no, oh no,
cried the king. Oh no, cried Terence Arthur Mulligan, covering his face.
Sorry,
said the big green thingy.
They're slowing down, said Tuppe. Overtake them.
I will, said Cornelius, and I'll do it on the inside, just to make it more exciting.
As you please.
More brakes, cried the king. More brakes.
I don't have any more brakes.
There was a kind of thud, the kind of thuds that brakes make when they break.
I don't have any brakes,
said Arthur. Anna preferred a brief chance to certain death. She climbed out of the serving window and jumped for her life, right onto the bonnet of a streaking silver car. Was that lucky or what? The silver car shot right past Mulligan's ices with only a bit of swerving, but not enough to dislodge Anna from the bonnet. The ice cream van just couldn't swerve. Some silver car had cut it up on the inside.
Oh no,
went Arthur and the king and Terence and the big green thingy all at the same time. And then it was kapow. It was a significant explosion in every sense of the word. The mushroom cloud billowed into the sky. Those few who saw it, and there were only very few, agreed it was a curious mushroom cloud, so red in the middle and so white all around and about with the smoke. It was almost like a big red laughing face surrounded by a great white beard, a bit like...
Cornelius brought the silver car to a gentle standstill. He jumped from the car and helped Anna down. She held her face up to his. They kiss.
Lovely. From it,
said Tuppe, and that was all he said for quite some time, because there came to his small and exceedingly shell-like ear a rustling behind the driver's seat.
"Could someone help one up here?"
said the voice of Her Majesty the Queen.
"One seems to have fallen arse over teared."